Midnight breaks so slowly into hearts of men who need more than they get. Daylight seems so bad to a woman who has made too many bets. The mirror stares you in the face and says,
Hello, everyone. My name is Eva Soriano, all the way from Mexico, and I'm gonna be here helping to introduce this beautiful and amazing dancer, artist, human that we have today. Thank you, everyone, for being here in Whacking World. I'm gonna just give a little quick introduction for the people that doesn't really know his all amazing career. So, he started dancing in the clubs in LA around the mid 70s, and the first disco he ever went was at Gino's. Tony Basil discovered him dancing in the Paradise Ballroom in 1976. She asked him to dance in her show, Follies Bizarre. David Winter saw him in that show and asked him to be the lead dancer and choreographer for Diana Ross. And then he went to dance with Michael Jackson for Beat It. He choreographed for the brother Jacksons. Also, he's been working with Gloria Estefan, Stevie Wonder, Paula Abdul, and more. He choreographed Breaking 2, The Electric Boogaloo, and other films. He, thanks to his career, he went all the way to Europe, to Eurovision with a Swedish group, and then he's been a current choreographer for Moulin Rouge in Paris for 34 years. Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's amazing. Uh, he's been working all around the world, especially in Italy, where he spent 35 years doing television, musicals, and concert work. And that's just a little bit of all his amazing career. So I'm more than happy to introduce you. Thank you, Billy, for being here. We appreciate you so much. Please speak for us a little bit. Say hi.
Hello, beautiful people. It is wonderful to be here with you. Can you hear me? Fantastic, wonderful. I'm honored to be here. It's nice to be welcomed back into the family. And I'm here to share my experience. So, anything I can do, let's do it.
Yay! Okay, thank you so much again for being here. Thank you everyone for being here and support Whacking World. Okay, we're gonna start with the first question, which is, how do you get into dance? How you become to be this beautiful artist?
Well, I got lucky because I was going to school and I was married very young. And when I was 19, I think I got married when I was 17, but when I was 19, I left school and I got divorced and I moved from Northern California to Los Angeles. Um, and I was living with my grandmother and my sister. And one night, my sister said, "Tonight we go out to one of her favorite clubs." And I say, "Okay, let's go." I had never been to a disco. And she took me to Gino's on Santa Monica Boulevard in Vine in Los Angeles. And I can tell you, everyone, Gino's changed my life that night. I walked in, and the most amazing thing happened. I felt at home. I felt I was in the right place with the right people. And it was like a crazy film. It's hard to describe what Gino's was like. I start with Michelangelo. Um, Michelangelo was the DJ, and he was in full drag as Tim Curry from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And that from the beginning was like coming from school to Gino's to see him like that. I was like, yes. And then I think probably the first night I just watched. I watched the club. I just let it, wash over me. And that night I saw everybody, the gang, Tinker, Arthur, China Doll, Victor, Lamont, everybody was there. And my boy Lonnie, and that became my life. I went to the club every night. I would work all day until 3 o'clock, and then I would go home and I would take a nap and wake up, and I would be back in the club at 10 until 2 every day. And that is where my street dance career, life, love, love affair, that's where it started at Gino's. I found that, at that time in the 70s, there was a lot of dance. There was locking and there was popping and boogalooing. Voguing was in New York. Um, but the dance that felt the best on my body and in my heart was whacking. It was, um, I think, I think it was the only dance, maybe besides voguing, it was the only dance that was really about self-expression, that was really about um, being who you are. It was connected to your own personal identity. It wasn't just about steps, you know. No two people were alike. Um, there weren't necessarily names of things. Um, you just kind of knew what the club was going to do, what your friends were going to do, what the music was going to do. It was crazy because there would be moments where, let's say, if the club exploded and everyone's going crazy, but then all of a sudden the music changes and the music is changing and accents are coming and the whole club will just start posing together. No one ever said we're going to do it right now, but you just knew the music is going to hit like Papa was a Rolling Stone. Boom, boom. Everybody would hit that together. The whole club would hit that together. Other times, everyone would hit the floor at the same time. No one knew how that was going to happen, but you knew I'm going down right now, and everybody would go down with you. So there was a certain amount of um, kind of chemistry and community and family that happened in the club. And a lot of that was thanks to Michelangelo, who made it. The club was about the dancers. It was our club. And anyone else who came in the club, you were welcome, but the club was for the dancers. And it was a safe place. And the 70s were an incredible time because there was a lot of people coming out, a lot of people, exploring their sexuality, and the club was the safe place to be. Um, I think the majority of the kids in the club were gay, and that could be difficult sometimes in the world. Um, but in the club, you were home. So I found home. That's
Oh,
how it all started.
oh, beautiful. Happy Pride Month everywhere,
Happy
too.
Pride.
Okay. So from that, do you had a dance experience before that, or that was like your first contact with dance?
Well, I was one of those kids that I danced all the time when I was young. You put on music, I danced. I loved it. My mother took me to ballet. Um, I think probably when I was around 5 or 6, and I liked dance, but I didn't like being the only boy in class. And so I was always like, Mom, I like this, but can we go play baseball? Can I go play football? The the um, the physical reality of how the classroom was, I didn't like when I was young. So before that, before Geno's, um, I really didn't have any real training. But what happened was there was another club called the Paradise Ballroom, and that's where Tony Basil saw me, um, and asked me to be in her show. I met a girl named Miranda Garrison, and we became dance partners. She is an actress, dancer, um, uh, and one night we went to see Alvin Ailey, and I was looking at the guys, and I was thinking, I was 19, and I was thinking, those guys look like they may have started, about 13, 14, 15 years old dancing. I don't think they started when they were young kids. And so I asked her, she was a trained dancer. I asked her, do you think I could do that? And she said, yes, but at 19, you're late. So you need to take some serious classes uh, immediately and get into ballet and jazz and modern and in everything. I took her seriously, and the next day at 9 a.m., my hand was on the ballet bar. And that's how, I began to take, technical dance.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So from there, going back into Geno's, how it was the beginning. You talk about how they will all know what to do with the music when the beat drops and all that. But can you share more of your experience in Geno's, like the competitions that were going on, the dance battles, the competitions, whatever it was going on Geno's. Maybe describe a little bit more each one of the original punkers that you saw when you first got there.
Um, okay. What can I say? Back then, there weren't really battles. Um, you might do kind of a group whack, you know, um, but but we didn't necessarily battle. We were kind of in each other's faces. Uh, um, uh, but there were um, competitions regularly every week. Um, they were incredibly creative. Um, the the gay mind is one of the most creative things I think in the world. And so the things that you would see um, were incredible, along with the dancing, because a lot of times it wasn't just people coming out in their regular clothes. You know, many times people would think of a whole theme and they'd have a costume, and sometimes they would have people like backing them up, with lights or with feathers, and it would be whole like production. And then sometimes it would be completely simple, you know. You never really knew what to expect in the club. Um, uh, I wrote down just some names so I don't forget anybody of kind of the first names that come to mind from back in the day. Um, there was Andrew, Billy Starr, Tinker, Tommy, China Doll, Lonnie, Michelangelo, Victor, Archie, Lamont, Anna Sanchez. There were a group of girls who were strong and fantastic. Dallas, Tony Basil, Tyrone. There was a girl named Peaches, Arthur, Mickey, Lord. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. But everybody had their own individual way of punking, whacking. Like I said, there were no one was the same. And there were no rules, and that was the beauty of it. It was almost like cooking a good meal. You put in the spices that were right for you. And it was great because you were always kind of stimulated and inspired by your friends. Sometimes, you would have to just run around snapping your finger and screaming and yelling because your friends were so incredible. And I think that was the beauty of it, is there was so much support, and there wasn't a lot of people dishing each other and talking smack and talking shit about each other. It was really kind of a community that supported each other. And so the club sometimes would have, like I said, sometimes would have themes that kind of Michelangelo would come up with. Sometimes we'd say, okay, everybody, we're going to the club tonight with point shoes on. And everyone would like bring point shoes and run around in point shoes like ballet dancers and whack on point. We used to do that quite a bit at Gino's or at the Paradise, sometimes at the Odyssey. So it was a bit like a circus. You never knew what was going to happen, but you kind of knew that the people in the circus were all part of the same team. We're all part of the same family.
Okay. And which ones were the dancers when you got to Gino's that you get more close with? And like how they were more in their dance styles, more specifically, what was more they were doing?
Well, probably the closest to me personally were for sure Tinker, who I was such a fan of Tinker, because I was always, I was an athlete in school, and so I was very physical, and Tinker was very, very physical. And Tinker had never had any ballet training or anything, but he would do stuff that looked like ballet. He would, and he had really, really high kicks, and would jump and do something called an entrecôte, but he didn't know what it was, but he saw someone do it and he would do it. He used to jump up on his toes before Michael Jackson. So there was Tinker, and I loved Andrew. Andrew was so incredibly dramatic and so grand. Then there was Victor and Arthur and China Doll and Michelangelo, Tommy, who I had so much fun with, Billy Starr, and then of course Dallas and Anna Sanchez and Tony. I was very, very close to them because I used to couple dance also. So I used to partner dance with all three of them. Along with whacking, partner dancing was my big thing. But those were really my closest family. I'm not sure if I said Lonnie, but Lonnie was my baby. Yeah,
Okay.
loved him.
Okay. Can you tell me like around what was the age range that you guys have on that time?
I think probably between I know a lot of kids had fake ID, including me. I was 19, and I think that there were probably some kids that were a little bit older than me that might have been like 21. So we were in like our late teens to early 20s. Probably between 18 and 21 was the range. So everyone was just kind of figuring out who they were. And I think probably the biggest way that helped us figure that out was through whacking, through dancing.
Okay. Okay, you talk about the clubs. Which one were your favorite ones and they were most hit around that time when you were into the style?
My favorites were for sure Gino's, the Paradise, and the Odyssey. Um, there was also the Other Side, and a few other clubs. But those were my favorite clubs because they were really, really for dancers. The Odyssey was probably the first kind of mega disco. So we would go there. It was different than Gino's in Paradise. Gino's in Paradise, also maybe because Michelangelo DJ'd at both Gino's and Paradise, which were really specifically just for dancing. The Odyssey was a big disco. So there were a lot of people from all over the place there. But those two were my favorite. And then, if you competed, like I competed, so sometimes you go to Destiny 2, which was a straight club, Blueberry Hill. There were different clubs that I would also go to and maybe compete at, but I didn't necessarily go there to hang out. I would go there and try and make $50 or $25, and do a competition. But the clubs mainly that I went to were Gino's and Paradise.
Okay. Um, you talk a little bit about everyone else, and I would like to hear from you. What were your inspirations?
My inspirations. Um, I think probably my biggest inspiration were um, the cinema divas of the 30s and 40s, like Marlene Dietrich and uh, Marilyn Monroe, and all of those women that were kind of bigger than life, that you could kind of take the drama that they had, and the grandness, and kind of put it into a man's body and be that fabulous. Like I have a little story about Diana Ross. She was watching us street dancers one night, and she came up to us and she said, "Where do you guys get all of those poses from and all of that stuff?" And we looked at each other and laughed, and we said, "We get it from you." And all of the screen divas from the 30s and 40s and 50s. And she started laughing. She was like, "Oh my God, because you're getting it from me, but I'm trying to steal it from you. I'm trying to steal it back watching you guys." So, I think Hollywood cinema played a big part of the kind of drama in punking and whacking. Also, there were inspirations depending on who you were, kind of. I also liked martial arts, so kind of karate and judo moves. Like I said, I was athletic, so I would like throw in, a karate kick, and because I remember Kung Fu Fighting, that song was out back then. So when that would come out, everybody would get kind of kung fu. So my inspirations from the club were of course Andrew and Tinker. They were probably my faves. Tyrone, I absolutely loved, because Tyrone really did it his way. And you could kind of see Tyrone in a club a certain way, but then we also did Soul Train back in the day. And Tyrone was so individual and so also dramatic in a different way than Andrew. But it's kind of like Burger King, everybody did it their way, and So, you know, I would look at how Tyrone got dramatic. I would look at how Andrew got dramatic. I would look at um, Tinker's physicality and be inspired by that. I would look at Victor's androgyny, because Victor did a whole lot of kind of gender bending. He never did drag. He always did something that kind of messed with your mind and you weren't sure what you were looking at, but all you knew is that you liked it, you know. Um, so there were inspirations everywhere.
Okay. And how was your inspirations? You mentioned about things that you were doing with kicks and all that, but for the arms, like when the arms become more, mm, how I say this, more they show up more as well.
Well, that depends, I think. And I really try to use my memory because I'm not sure if everyone out there knows. I was whacking in the clubs in the 70s and early 80s. And then my career took me into a different form of dance. But whacking remained very, very personal and very private. So I remember it kind of today like I did, 40 years ago. Um, Arms were different because some people, like Andrew, some people did big arms, but they did big arms posing, like hit, 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 and some people, like Tinker and me, we were rolling and twirling. And so you had kind of different styles. To tell the truth, I think I don't think Andrew really wanted to sweat. So, his stuff was very grand, but it was very, he wasn't going to build a sweat because he was that fabulous. I was busy sweating, Tinker was sweating. We were kicking and going to the floor and getting up and jumping and, running. So it was interesting because sometimes if like one of my favorite songs I remember was You Plus Me. I'm not sure if you guys know You Plus Me. But that would like send the club into in the insanity. When she would start screaming, the whole club would go crazy and people would start running and whacking and arms. But you could always kind of tell who the kids were that were rolling, who the kids were that were doing arms like posing. It was all different, and all of it was good. There wasn't any kind of judging about, you know, what's right, what's wrong, what's better. It's just like that's how you did it, you know. So yeah, arms were the arms of choice. You chose what felt good on your body.
Okay. So, going still in the history of the style, we know first it was called it punking and then becomes wagging. And as we all know, is this little thing about like this thing about working with H, working with WA. So if you could share your point of view of that situation.
My point of view is kind of like I don't have a point of view. um I do the dance, I did the dance, and I never spelt it. We didn't go around spelling whacking or whack. We did it. I think the issue of how it's spelt became something decades later. I'm not sure if it was in the late 80s or the 90s where suddenly people were talking about how do you spell it. Um, but I'm like the kind of person where what's important to me is the dance. How you spell it? You guys tell me how you guys spell it. WAACK. Okay. WHACK. Okay. It doesn't make any difference to me because whacking was never about how it's spelled.
Mm.
It's about the love, the freedom, the fabulousness of life. How you spell that? Maybe everybody spells it different, and that's okay. Where's the problem?
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
we're going for the next one, which is gonna be how was your experience working with Diana Ross? All the time that you
Woo.
were working with her, this amazing famous video, and I know you have some photos that you can share with us as well. So I can't wait to hear that.
Yes. Well, Diana Ross was. It's really interesting because in the I'm learning about the current whacking community now, um, and I'm impressed at how big and huge and international it is, and it almost makes me cry because most of the guys that were there at the beginning are not here today. Pride. Um, so it kind of makes their dance, their lives still important. That they are being felt through all of you. So I know that Diana Ross, that show has kind of become I don't even know what the word is. Um, uh, it's
Icon.
it's almost like a banner, a flag, that you wave about whacking, which I love. I'm completely in love with that, but at the same time, I'm saddened that there were so many things going on that no one ever captured on video. And but Diana, when I got Diana Ross, um, she didn't want real dancers. She wanted beautiful, beautiful guys that looked like models, all white, and she would be the black girl in the middle. And I got hired early, like a month early, to kind of be her personal assistant and run around and help get the project started. And she told me this idea, and I was like, boring. She was like, what? I was like, well, we've seen that, I mean, that's not very exciting, you know. I mean, I was just like, what? And she said, well, what do you think I should be going for? And I was like, well, there is this group of guys, and there is this dance that's bigger than a dance. It's life itself that I think you should see. And she was like, where do I see it? And I said, well, we'll go to a club one night. So we got her dressed incognito, and I took her to Gino's. And she absolutely fell in love with with this dance and this energy. And she kind of did what for whacking what Madonna did for voguing. But she knew that what we were doing was special. And again, at that time in the 70s, there was dance like crazy everywhere, locking and popping, and uh, but no one had ever seen this particular dance. So she was like, oh, this is going to be mine. So the fact that she trusted us kids, because we were all kids, we were all like 19, 20 years old. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we started in 1977. and I was 20. So everyone was about that age. And the fact that she trusted us um, to stand next to her, to dance next to her, that was a big deal. That was a huge, huge deal. And in Vegas at that time, you know, all of the big stars. I know, Ava, you're in Vegas. You know, in Vegas at that time, all of the big female stars had their dancers. You know, Shirley MacLaine had her dancers. Anne Margaret had her dancers. Cher had her boys. Liza Minnelli had her dancers. And we were Diana Ross's dancers. And four of us were like street dancers. So we were like, this is incredible. Um, so it was always nice during Love Hangover. Excuse me, because the audience, not only did they not know what was going to happen, but they didn't expect for the stage to all of a sudden blow up during Love Hangover. And the audience would go crazy. The singers in the back, because Love Hangover would go into a song called Quartz, Beyond the Clouds. But our orchestra would do Quartz live. And the gospel singers behind would start singing like birds from the heavens, screaming, and we're dancing, and you know, you'd get lost on stage. Like it would become Geno's every night with Diana. And I have never, you know, I mean, I've been in this business for over 40 years. I've never experienced that ever again. That sense of liberty and freedom and excitement and energy. And I knew my boys got my back and I got their back, and we are going to tear it up. We hope that all of you in the audience are ready. And that's what Whacking was for us. So Diana, and I get emotional because I've had a career in show business. A lot of street dancers have what is the word? Have shorter careers because there's not as much work, you know. So for street dancers, whackers, to have a job for 3 years with one of the biggest stars in the world at that time was an honor that I was able to give them. And allow it was almost kind of like giving back, because those three guys were special to me. You know what I mean? They were, you know, I was biting moves from them maybe more than anybody else. But kind of to give back to the whacking community, give back to the clubs, to have this possibility was a pretty special thing. And then while we were there, her album came out, The Boss, and on The Boss was I'm Coming Out, which had its own pride significance to everyone, and we got to be a part of that with her, which meant a lot. So Diana Ross was a very, very special moment, and I'm happy that it's special still today for people in the community. And I still have people that tell me, you know, Billy, I saw that show in Vegas 40 years ago, or I saw it in Chicago, or I saw it here and there. And to this day, I remember you guys lighting up that stage, when Love Hangover came on. And my friends still get excited and like, oh my God, oh my God. And then Andrew was, oh my God. And then Lonnie, and oh, Zinker. And then you came out, oh, and then everybody together. And then, oh, yeah, that's a wonderful thing. That doesn't happen every day in a career that people remember. People also remember that way about Tony Basil's show that I did. And I have to give big props to Tony. I think everybody out there knows Tony Basil. Big props to her, because she also was hiring street dancers and waving the flag. I want to give props also to Jeff Kutash, who also had a lot of street dancers working back in the day. Whackers, lockers, poppers, back in the 70s and 80s. So Diana Ross, speaking of Diana Ross, I have some pictures. Why don't I show some pictures of Diana Ross? I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see them, because this one is really dark, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And this is all of us: Tinker, Lonnie, Andrew, myself, and Chico. Chico was Diana Ross's brother, and he danced with us as well. And the funny thing is, when Chico started, he didn't know how to whack, but he learned how to whack and loved doing it. And then this is, I have a story about this. Wait, first I should show you something else. Okay, let me get myself organized here. I was organized before. Where is that? Here we go. So, not sure if you can see this. Don't know where it went. This is Andrew. And it is a moment that is so great, so fantastic, because the story goes like this. We were in Chicago doing the show, and we went out that night after the concert, and we went to the Playboy Club, because there was a group of dancers that I knew called Dancing Machine, and they were a group that was with Jeff Kutash at the time. They were performing there. So we went there, and there was, we partied like crazy, absolutely like crazy, all night long with Diana, the guys. It was fantastic. I'm not sure if you see this picture. Wait a second. Go away. But that's me and Diana and Andrew. And if you can see the suit that Diana's wearing, it's this green hand-beaded suit by Bob Mackie that I don't even know how much money it cost, $25,000, $50,000, I don't even know. She was having so much fun dancing with us and Andrew that at one moment she took the jacket off and she just gave it to Andrew. She just gave it to him. And that was his face. This is his face. I just happen to have my camera ready, and that's his face. I love him. Look at it. But that was Diana Ross. She was that generous. Sometimes when we were in Vegas, she would just give all the guys, like, they have chips to go play in the casino. She would just give the guys chips. Go have fun, This is me and Lonnie at the pool. Look at Lonnie. Bless his heart. So good. Look at him. So talented. And then Diana was so sweet. And this again has never ever happened to me. She would actually fly the dancers and the singers on a private jet to all of our concerts because she didn't want us to be on a bus for 8 hours trying to get someplace and then trying to dance. So this is me and Andrew at the airport. We're actually on the tarmac getting ready to catch a plane. He was my boy. And then I love this picture. This is us all on the tarmac doing like a group whack, you know, and just clowning. You can see that's an airplane right there. That's our plane. And Andrew fell in love with my sister as a friend, of course. So that's them together partying, having a good time. And this is me getting ready to go on stage with Andrew. Getting ready to go on stage. And then I had one more. It was funny because Diana took us to places that when we went to New York, we were at Radio City Music Hall, and we one night she took us all to Studio 54, and we went there to party. And at one point we're there and people rush up to me and they're like, Billy, you have to get on stage. They want you to dance with Diana. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah. You know, the cameras are all here, the press, you know, go dance with Diana. I'm like, okay. And again, I'm like 20, you know, so I'm like, Studio 54, go dance with Diana. Fantastic. And then they ended up shooting. Where's that picture? This picture that ended up in People magazine. Watch me not be able to find it now. I just saw it. Screenshots. Oh, there we are. Oh, you can't really see it. Oh, that's too bad. No, can't see it. Anyway, but whacking was it was kind of like, you know, out of all of the street dances, it was kind of the secret street dance. I mean, voguing was out in New York, and I'm not sure if it remained kind of a secret because it was the gay dance. Maybe that was it. But for so long, it was kind of this secret until all of you brought it back, until all of you fell in love with it. So I think I need to say thank you to all of you for keeping it alive and keeping the spirit of the dance alive. And again, I know all of my angel brothers who are in heaven would be so happy to know that that whacking is alive, that punking is alive, that kids are falling in love with it every day. So yes, Diana Ross.
Thank you so much for sharing all those photos and all that experience about Diana Ross and all that. I will also would like to ask you about more mainstream things that you have done, like the movie Roller Boogie, like choreographing, like when you dance for Michael Jackson, and how all that even you keep putting Joaquin into, how Joaquin was involved in all those.
Um, well, interestingly enough, I met the Jacksons, the whole family, through Diana, because I'm not sure if people know this or remember. Diana was the one who discovered the Jackson Five. So they were like family. So the guys would come and see our show all the time. And Michael was in love with street dance. He was in love with dance in general, but he was in love with street dance. Um, so he was always trying um, to learn the new stuff. One of my good friends, so many people have worked with him and have taught him and mentored him. But Poppin Taco is a friend of mine, and he was back in the day, Bruno. Back in the day, he was there with us. Actually, he was in Tony Basil's show when I was in that show. Um, but because Michael loves street dance, um, he he was there was always that style. You know, it might not be the actual steps, but the perfume of street dance was always with Michael. And I have a funny story because the the choreographer of Beat It, he actually danced in it. His name is Michael Peters, and he was the guy in the white suit in Beat It, who was doing the fight with Vince Patterson, who later on became a choreographer of Smooth Criminal and different things as well. Um, but Michael Peters was my teacher and my mentor, and I loved everything Michael Peters. Um, but the first day of rehearsal for Beat It, um, I came in to rehearsal with everybody else, and it was great because it was such a high because in the room we're the best dancers in LA that did that job. And through the job went on rehearsing, and Michael kept looking at me and in the mirror. I kept seeing him glancing at me. And the day went on. And after a while, my friend started saying, "Why is he looking at you so much?" And I was like, "I don't know, but it's starting to make me kind of crazy that he is looking at me so much." And I started thinking to myself, okay, I'm getting ready to get fired. And and I don't even know why, but he can't seem to stop looking at me. So at one point near the end of the first day, I see him like wave to me and say, like, "Come here." And I'm like, okay, where's my bag? Because I'm getting fired. And I go over to him and I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, what could be happening? And he says to me, "Excuse me, don't we know each other?" And I said, "Actually, we do, Michael. I was Diana's choreographer and lead dancer in her tour, and we met several times with the family." It was like, "Oh, that's it. Oh, I'm so glad you're doing this job with me." He said to me, "I'm so glad you're doing this job with me." Still today, I like go to bed and it's like I almost want to put my thumb in my mouth and remember that moment that Michael Jackson said to me, "I'm glad you're doing this job with me." And that was why? Because of Whacking, because he saw that show. Um, and you know, Whacking has been a part of my dance career in that I was probably one of the first teachers that began to kind of fuse whacking and street dance with jazz dance. And I became kind of known for that as a teacher. And many of my students kind of learned how to whack just through taking jazz with me. And so in everything that I do, you're going to find probably a little bit of whacking someplace. There's going to be some posing. There's going to be maybe some arms. The perfume remains on everything that I do. Even though I don't do whacking per se pure, it is always next to my heart. So no matter what I do, I can do a milk commercial, I can choreograph at the Moulin Rouge in Paris, I can work with kids, I can be doing a musical. Whacking and street dance is someplace. It slides in there somewhere somehow, because it's part of who I am. You know, it's part of my DNA. So I was lucky enough to do Electric Boogaloo Breaking 2 with Shabadoo. And Shab has been a friend my whole career. And another new angel. He was also in Tony Basil's show when I started with her, which was my first job. And Billy Starr was in that with me. And Electric Boogaloo was insanely wonderful because in that there was also a lot of newer whackers, you know, who were involved in that movie with us. And that is something that has become kind of a cult in its own in the street dance world, you know. So I've been honored to be a part of some street dance moments that I think were important, and not important because of me, important because I gave them an opportunity to breathe and to live. That's all. I don't take credit for anything other than being a vehicle for dance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, we have some questions. We're starting with the questions, so you can unmute yourself and ask if you want. If someone over there is a Spanish speaker, I can help you translate. I'm gonna go with one question that it was almost in the beginning, which it was. I'm looking for it. Give me 1 second. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh my God, I can't find it. Give me 1 second. Okay, one, it was like Kadi, she would like to know how it was Studio 54 for you, like the vibe, the experience, like how was everything over there?
Studio 54 was kind of like Geno's on steroids, like with stars on steroids. And again, it's interesting too, because I can make a parallel. I've been working at the Moulin Rouge in Paris for a long time. Now, the Moulin Rouge 100 years ago when it opened was kind of a scandalous place to go because there was a lot of sexy dancing. There was the upper class mixing with the lower class. It was located in the red light district. Now, Geno's was similar to that. There was everything all mixed together. because what was happening was so fabulous that people wanted to go there from everywhere. That's how Studio 54 was too. You know, you had stars mixed with regular people, mixed with drag queens, mixed with people. A lot of the gay community was represented at 54, um, but it was really like a a melting pot where you just stirred up kind of society. There were no more um, barriers and levels. You were all kind of the same because of the club. Now, of course, big stars were there. I mean, when I was going there, you know, you could see Andy Warhol, you could see Liza Minnelli, you could see Pacino, you could see Grace Jones, you could see everybody, everybody, the biggest models, Halston, the biggest designer, everybody was there. Um, but as soon as you hit the dance floor, you were on the dance floor. You know, the dance floor was equal opportunity, everybody. Um, and a lot of craziness went on and wonderfulness. I was lucky, you know, there are a lot of people, I don't know how they decided how people got in. That was always scandalous because there were probably more people trying to get in outside than were actually in the club. But because of Diana Ross, um, we had the gift of being in a limousine with her, being driven over to the club every night, and being escorted in. That was a privilege, and we were very, very lucky to be able to experience Studio 54. Wild, crazy, wonderful, scandalous. Ooh, scandalous. Um, Everything going on in corners and, you know, the best music, the best lights, um, crazy horses, animals. It was a circus. I saw one question. Can I answer it?
Yes.
Were the women dancers welcome in the clubs too? Yes. Oh, yes. It was not a gay club meaning just guys. No, no. There were guys and girls. There were girls that were whacking. There was one girl named Peaches. Peaches used to actually even compete, and Peaches is around today. So yes, women were represented and respected and loved, and it was all good. Yes.
That was a question that I was looking for and I couldn't find, but it was all the way in the top. Thank you so much. Another one. Well, let me ask this one. The Clement say, I'm interested in the small human details of the clubs. Like, did they have space? Were they all stuck together and so they kept slapping each other with their arms? How much did the atmosphere of the clubs,
um,
warm, sweaty, packed, influence the way the dance was created?
that's kind of a good question. Um, because the dance is so physical, um, and um, like over the years, like maybe the past 20 years, voguing has become very, very physical. Um, uh, but back in the day, yes, you could get a black eye easily in a club. Um, but because it was a dancers club, everyone knew really, really well about space, about how to use your space and how to respect other people's space so that it never became dangerous. And it never did. If someone got hit, it was probably a stranger to the club who came in, rushed out onto the dance floor, and started doing their move and didn't know that arms and legs and everything else is going to start flying. And Michelangelo, particularly Michelangelo, would kind of keep a certain part of the dance floor kind of really just for the dancers. And then the periphery was kind of like regular people, you know. And he would be the first one to say, if you don't know what's up, get off the dance floor. You know, he would like actually tell people in the club, you know, this is a dancers club, and you know, for your own safety, um, uh, you know, be wise and be safe out there. And, you know, if you want to have a good time and you don't want to get hurt, you know, don't get in the middle of the mosh pit, you know, and this was before mosh pits. As far as size of the clubs, Geno's was the smallest. Geno's was tiny, 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 tiny. It's so weird. I can see it. I can see it today. It was like somebody's apartment or something, you know. I mean, it was like a big apartment. Um, you walked in, you came up these stairs and you walked in. And I remember I used to love at Geno's looking at people standing in line because people could dress, baby. Friday, Saturday night, it was on. You saw everything. I mean, everybody looked like they just came out of the dry cleaners, you know. You were like, fly. But you'd walk into Geno's, and right in front of you was the bar. Over there was like the smallest little seating area lounge, and then there was the bathrooms. And over this direction was the small dance floor and the DJ over on the side, Michelangelo on the side. So really, Geno's was the smallest. Paradise was bigger, had more space. It was more like a real club. I'm not sure if everybody knows the phrase dive, a dive club. Geno's was a dive. Geno's was a fabulous dive. And I don't say that disrespectfully because I am the type of club goer that usually the clubs that I want to go to are the dives. I don't really want to go where everybody's going.
Mhm.
I want that underground secret club that, you know, somebody put together in somebody's room, in somebody's house. And, you know, it's not really a club, but it's where you want to be. Geno's was like that. Paradise was bigger. And then the Odyssey was kind of like the beginning of the kind of mega discos, you know.
Okay. Now that you were talking about DJs, it was, we know Michelangelo was one of the main ones, the bigger one, the godfather of this, but it was more DJs involved because I haven't really heard names of more DJs.
No, I mean, there probably were, but our small circle, we kind of followed Michael. You know, it's like when Michael was at Geno's, we were at Geno's. When he started spinning records at the Paradise, we followed him to the Paradise. You know, and even though we went to the Odyssey, because the Odyssey wasn't like a real like whackers club, it kind of was for everybody. Even the music was like not as good, not as much for us. Like they played a lot of top 20 and that kind of stuff. I know that there were dancers there were DJs out there for sure. I think even Mark Starman, is that his last name? He wasn't a whacker, but he was around back in the day. But I know he did some DJing also at Geno's. But Michelangelo holds the crown. And I want to say he deserves it. Completely deserves it.
Awesome. Thank you. Sophie, she raised her hand. You can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Sophie. I'm from the Philippines, and I only started whacking when I entered high school. So I wanted to ask, because I fell in love with the dance only like when quarantine started over here. And I wanted to ask, do you have any advice for people who want to for like immerse themselves further into the community, but they're like not exactly sure how to, or maybe learn more about the dance with like limited resources. Not saying that the resources here are limited, but maybe for other dancers out there who really want to get like more into it, but they're not really sure how to start. So yeah. And do you have
Wow.
any advice for people who like want to keep doing it? So yeah.
Um, aren't you beautiful?
Thank
you're
you.
you're you're lovely. Um, uh, it's hard because I'm just coming back to the community. So I'm kind of newer than everybody else coming home. Uh, so what is actually happening in the community? I'm sure Ava and Jason know more than I do. I have been contacted by many different people in the past year or two, especially since COVID, and especially since people found out that I moved home. Um, uh, I've been contacted by, Jason, by, Princess Lakaru, Kamari, different people that are out there. And what I would like to say to everybody out there is, and something that I would like to try to help um, get the word out, is that there are other people out there that might not have been part of that original 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that we all talk about. But there are people out there that were inspired by them, that were in the clubs back then, that were doing shows, street dance shows back then, that are still alive. Now, I know there's a big conversation about OGs, and I don't really understand what that means. People call me an OG. I'm like, okay, you can call me whatever you want to call me. All I know is I was there. Um, but I think for the dance community, for the whacking community, and I'm putting this out there to everybody, is that I think it's important to remember that the community was big. There were a lot of people that loved this dance. Some people are more known than others. Um, Many of them are girls who are still alive. Anna Sanchez, Topaz, No No Nanette. I mean, there are girls that were doing it. There are guys. There are even straight guys that like that fell in love with it, like Shabadoo did. Um, and I think the community has spent a lot of time learning the role, learning the technique. And I think what the community might be missing is kind of the oxygen of what it was really like, what the human experience was really like. And I figure the more people you have to talk to about it, the better. And if there are voices out there that remember what it was like, maybe we should be searching them out, you know. And of course, that is not to say that those original guys are not the original guys. Of course, they are. But those original guys inspired a world that hasn't yet been tapped into, I don't think, by the whacking community. And so and a lot of them, I have kind of sent messages to them saying, you know, I'm trying to put your name out in the streets as one of the people that was there back then, you know, that was in the club watching Tinker and Andrew and Arthur and everybody, Victor, everybody, you know, girls, guys, gay, straight, the heart of the dance. I think many of those guys are angels, but the beat goes on. So I think hopefully for young whackers, I hope that the community and only gets richer and bigger and more informed about what it was all really like.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay, I'm gonna write one of the questions here and then I go with the next raise hand. Maga, can you ask about the representation of the woman in the scene in Genos with the original punkers and how it was evolving and the same?
Hi, Maga. Well, hi, sweetie. I think that, well, how can I say this? A lot of times in gay clubs, there is, strangely enough, prejudice. And that can be, you know, if you're a guy in a girl's bar, if you're a girl in a guy's bar, you know, that exists. But my feeling in Geno's and in Paradise, that was not an issue. We came to dance. And again, this was kind of, I'm speaking for myself now, but Geno's wasn't like a pickup club. You didn't go to Geno's to find someone. You went to Geno's to dance. So because there wasn't that energy, you know, because even sometimes, you know, it would happen to me. You know, my cousin is gay, you know, she's a lesbian, and I have a lot of lesbian friends, and I used to love to go to girls' bars with them. And a lot of times I would get stopped at the door, you know, and I know that would happen with girls trying to get into some, you know, gay men's clubs. At Geno's, that was not the case. And at the Paradise, no. And even at the Odyssey, it was about the club. It wasn't about looking at people's differences. It was about how the same we are because we love this, you know. And it wasn't like, you know, a straight guy's coming in to a girls' club trying to pick up, you know, girls. So they didn't want that stuff didn't happen. And as far as the girls whacking, there were some fierce ladies out there. I mean, to this day, when I think of Anna Sanchez, and how blistering she was on the dance floor, Dallas Winkler, who was kind of like, I mean, we were dance partners, but she was kind of like my alter ego, because Dallas, she whacked, but then she did all kinds of other things in her whacking because she drew from all of her dance experience. And that's what I was doing. You know, I mean, my all of my training, all of the things that I love to do, went into my whacking, and that's what made me particular. That's what made Dallas particular, because she was bringing her roots with her. She wasn't trying to copy anybody. Um, I mean, I've had the pleasure of working and watching Dallas and Anna Sanchez dance together. There's something out there that I hope at some point all of you will be able to see. It's a dance number called Sweet Lucy with Shabadoo, Steve Notario, Anna Sanchez, and Dallas. Amazing. Amazing. The four of them. All different. Again, Steve Notario lives in Vegas. Ava lives in Vegas, can whack his butt off. He used to have a group called the Footlockers. His street name was Sugarfoot. So to get back to your question about women, I think women could hold their own. Women were incredibly good at it. But a lot of times, strangely enough, there might have been a difference in drama, because you women, it's like watching RuPaul's Drag Race. Sometimes you see things that are like, oh my God, how incredible and feminine and out of this world that is. That's because it's a man trying to emulate a woman, a super woman, whereas a woman is already a woman. So sometimes maybe the drama, she doesn't necessarily think about it, but guys actually take time looking at pictures, looking at films, getting inspired by how a woman moves, how she acts, you know, naturally, just her natural way of holding herself, to us will become a science, you know. So in some respects, maybe without the woman, there wouldn't be the whack. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. But you know, we were busy watching all of you and how all of you live in the world, and then glorifying it and making it what we thought it could be. So there's a very interesting relationship between whacking and women.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Maga.
Okay, we're going for the next one, which is Nisita. Is that the right way I say it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's Nikita.
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 Yeah. Hi.
Hi,
So
sweetie.
in this talk, I was really inspired by like your positive energy, and also how you spoke about the gay minds being very creative, because I feel like you're talking about the positive things that people from vulnerable communities have. And you also spoke about how you found your safe space and felt accepted in the clubs that you went to. So I just wondered if you could elaborate on how you felt and how it helped you grow as an individual when you found a safe environment for your growth. Because I just feel if people who are considered different from society for whatever strange reasons start talking about how it helped them grow, like when people actually accepted them for who they are, maybe people like start accepting different people with a more open mind rather than being judgmental and all. And I just hope this question's not too harsh, because I mean,
No, I think it's very appropriate on Pride Month to have a question like this,
no,
because
even like one more thing. Like, I'm not just restricting this to like the LGBTQ community, because my sister's a special child and I see how much discrimination she's faced in life. So I feel like different people are discriminated for different reasons. And if people start talking about the importance of acceptance, it would help people not just from the pride, the queer community, but other communities as well.
Yes, well,
So
that is exactly what I was just going to say, is that pride for me is pride for the human race, for everyone. It is a celebration that I think the LGBT community, it's almost, I think, our responsibility to share it with the world. Um, so I think, like, to tell the truth, I remember the first time I went to Gay Pride here in Los Angeles. It was on Fairfax Boulevard, and it was like a county fair where everyone was there. Gay people, straight people, families, children, booths. There were a lot of mainly booths where people could go, gay, straight, to find out information, because no one really knew, you know, and it was like people are curious about my neighbor, my, you know, the person over there, you know, I want to know about that person and try to understand. Um, and it was extremely inclusive. Things, of course, have changed, and you know, but I think that that was the power of dance. Um, and I will tell you too that I remember at Gino's and at the club and at Paradise that there were special needs people in the clubs, and that were welcomed, and that some of them actually became icons here in LA. Um, really, icons. Um, and they were part of the the terrain. You know, they were part of the earth. You know, part of the people, and they were accepted. And I know I accepted them and loved when I saw them. You know, and unfortunately, one of them just passed away a few years ago, and I remember her. Um, she was wheelchair bound, maybe a paraplegic, trans, and I'm sure in her life experienced so much prejudice and difficulty that it was a pleasure to make her feel welcome in the club, just like the club made me feel welcome, you know. So I think it's the power of dance, the power of human spirit, because I think at the end of the day, you know, I don't want to get too far away from whacking, but at the end of the day, I think the human spirit wants to be good. The human spirit wants to be inclusive. It's all kind of the garbage that we learn, the social garbage that gets attached to us, you know. And the nice thing about the club and whacking is that there was a purity, you know. It was almost like water, you know, just water flowing. And you know, it's like water doesn't have time to judge. Water just has time to just flow, you know, and that's the way the club was. So I think it's a very important question, a good question, um, to know how powerful, you know, dance can unite us together. So thank you for that question.
yeah, also thank you for emphasizing on how like human beings want to be nice, because actually our minds are conditioned in such a way that certain people don't accept certain people for whatever weird things they've been taught, and also for talking about the lack of awareness, because I feel like that happens a lot in my country. So yeah,
It's my
thank you.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, we're going for the next one, which is from Eric Alvaro. He say, "What was Michelangelo like personally? Own dance movements on the dance floor.
Hmm.
Personality. I'm sorry, personality."
Hey, I love the disco wheel. Thank you. I love that. Um, Michelangelo was a genius. I think he was a pioneer. Um, so incredibly talented. There's another club that wasn't a whacking club, although we did go there and whack, but it was a lesbian club called Peanuts. And there was a group called the Cosmetics that I assume Michelangelo was the creator of it. I'm assuming it. But uh, Victor was in the group, Lonnie, China Doll, Tommy, Michael. And then there were some other people that came into it, Viva and Grace, who weren't whackers, but they were gender benders, and they would do lip sync and kind of dance. Um, this club and their shows were so ahead of time, so creative, and that was all thanks to Michael, because Michael was insanely creative, insanely funny. Like I said, I was a couple dancer, a partner dancer, and Michelangelo used to like to partner dance, and Michael was one of the few people that I ever let lead me. And that was just because of how much I respected and loved him. That when he would, he would be DJing and he would come from behind the booth and just walk right to you and just grab your hands. And you knew if he grabbed your hands, you were going to be following, So I'm just going to give it up to Michael, and it's going to be all about him tonight. And but there was that kind of trust because I always thought that this man was so incredibly talented. Um, and it kind of went beyond um, dancing and went beyond DJing. I think that he had a heart that was so big and so inclusive and was so wonderful to always make these clubs a safe place for us to be. You know, we, the actual people, were important in the club. Now, how does a DJ make you feel that way? Michelangelo would make you feel that way. We were kind of his tribe. And I felt honored to be part of his tribe. And I remember at Peanuts, they would do shows and we would give tips. And I was always going out of there with an empty wallet because I would just have to throw money because the insanity and the genius and the stuff that would happen was incredible. And Michael created that kind of space, along with being a diva and a prankster and having an incredibly good sense of humor. He was a very, very special creature. Yes. The world was lucky to have him.
Next
You're
question.
welcome.
Next question from Sarah. Were crazy rolls and big arms that nowadays used in the clubs too?
What? Can you say that again?
Yes, I'm sorry. Were crazy rolls and the big arms that known nowadays used in the clubs too? Oh yeah, like if all what
Yes.
we know now in arms was
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Some people more than others, you know. I mean, I look at Lockeroo, and no, no one did arms like Lockeroo back in the day. Because she kind of has taken the arms to an extreme, um, to a science almost. But back in the day, yes, arms um, were a big part of the dance. Um, Another big part of the dance, though, I think, was people people traveling, people moving through space. Um, Punking and whacking, it wasn't a stationary dance. There was a lot of footwork, a lot of movement, a lot of traveling, a lot of running. Um, uh, but yes, the answer is yes.
next one from Omar. What elements of the dance are important to you when watching this dance back and then today? And oh, sorry, my internet. And is there anyone you want to dance with today as being an older dancer watching these young dancers come up?
Is there anyone I wait, anyone that's old like me or anyone that's young?
From the young generations.
Young generations. Um, well, it's interesting because I just taught a class online. It was called Street Jazz, but everybody in there was also a whacker. And it was online, I think 3 days ago. And it was kind of like being right back in the club. It was a Zoom, so I could see everybody. And at one point, I found myself full on whacking, like in my room, just like, going crazy. And it was kind of like, it's the power of the dance still is stronger than me, and can make me still go crazy. Um, I can't say that I know enough of the young whackers to pick somebody out. Um, I know that I like what I see, and would love to be in a space, a club, um, and just hang out. Um, More so than a battle. I think that maybe that's maybe some of what maybe the community is missing. Um, we didn't. The majority of our dancing wasn't in competition. The majority of our dancing was hanging out with each other and going out and partying and dancing all night long. Um, and that experience is I treasure. That's the best of the best of the best. Um, and it was almost like, because of the clubs, you got to know people because one night was never like another night. So you didn't do the same thing every time you hit the floor, and night after night of dancing together and growing up together and seeing people's movements change and evolve, and was a beautiful, beautiful thing. We were never in a classroom setting, you know. We were in a setting that was more about kind of heart to heart. So I can't say that there's anybody right now because I don't know enough. I would love to be in a situation where um, I'm live one on one in the club with the community, and hit the dance floor with y'all that way, you know.
Awesome. I would like to tap a little bit more deep in what elements of the dance are important when watching this dance back and then today. Just to make it a little bit more clear if it's possible.
Um, it's possible that I haven't seen enough. Um, but from what I've seen, um, what I've seen is a lot of good technique. Um, I assume that that is because a lot of people learned how to whack in a classroom setting. You know, they learned it from somebody. I never learned it from anybody. No one ever told me how to do a roll. I just watched the room and lit the match. Um, so in the club, the thing that was most special was people's personality, people's how you wore your life in your dance. So the more interpretation, the more self-expression. Because I think something to remember too is that in some ways, I could say maybe a lot of us felt like outcasts. But in the club, we were able to be ourselves. We were able to really, really just let ourselves be who we are. And that is what gave the dance the expression, the flavor, the color, the smell. That it was all about who you are, you know. And I think at some point, you know, even in my dancing, even when I started becoming a trained dancer, you know, the technique of it, at some point you have to throw all of that out the window and trust that I have the technique, but now who am I doing the technique? The thing that becomes important is who are you? What is your voice? You know, and that's what made the club so great, because the club would end up singing as people dance because people's voices were so loud and special and wonderful and unique. So for me, I think personal expression is everything, you know.
Hmm. Okay, we're going for the last one because we're running out of the time.
Yeah.
So one is gonna be from Sarah. Sarita would say, could you please elaborate on this world the community is not tapping into? Are there specific names?
Ava, you have to help me understand that question. I don't understand the question.
Yeah. Sarah, are you there? Sarita, do you mean specific names on
Names
people?
of names of dance steps or names of people?
Yeah, I don't know. Sarita?
Because there were no names of dance steps. There were no names.
Sarita, are you there? I don't saw. Well, I do have one in specific also. Wait, the people we don't know about. Probably that's what it is.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of names. Yeah. I even have them written down. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm just gonna throw some names out. Flame. Flame, and she lives in Vegas, Flame. Laura Boogie O'Banion, Karen Smith, Kimberly Carlson, Marilyn Corwin, Ann Olson, Nono Nanette, Topaz, Peaches, Bianca Linda Collins, Steve Notario, Smokey, Dino, Gino, Sandy Gray, who was one of my partners, Miranda Garrison, again, who was one of my partners, Jennifer Stace, Dory Sanchez. And I think for the community, I just want to throw out a name. Well, two names are two of the biggest names that I can give. One of them you know, and that's Tony Basil. Another one is Jeff Kutash. Because Jeff Kutash had a dance production and kept more street dancers working through the 70s and 80s more than anyone else. And a lot of those kids are kids that I just named, and a lot of them whacked. A lot of them did everything. They whacked, they locked, they popped, but they were there. They were in the clubs, running around, loving it, just like me.
Okay. If it's by any chance you could write down that list and send it to me so we can share it to them, because since we are not all English speakers, sometimes we have issues with how to spell the last name and all that. We would highly appreciate that. And I have one last question that this is for me that I would like to ask. The majority of the community, like I see so many stories about Genos and how like it was a lot of Latinos. So I want to know if it was more around like Black community, Latinos, like what was the predominance in that moment? I know it was all mixed, but it was one kind of predominance at that time.
I think it was predominantly Latino. Yes. There were a lot of Black kids, some Asian community, and some Caucasian, and everything else. But I think probably it was predominantly Latino.
Thank you so much. That just brightened my heart so much, because Latinos, we have a big part of like something to do in this style, like, and we're not just guests, like we are part of this, and that's
no.
important that the people knows that too.
Yes. No. There is no guest Latino community. The house was Latino. You know.
Sorry, I just get too excited with that. Sorry. Woo.
Pride is pride.
Yeah, Latino pride, of course. Oh my God. Okay, so for one last thing, can you please give a message for this generation?
I think the dance is still worthy of your curiosity and trying to really find it and understand it. Don't stop. Don't stop, because it's out there. There's a lot more to find. Keep trying to find a place that is home for you, that is a safe place. Dance is always there for us, you know. And if you can remain passionate, you know, about the dance will never let you down. It will never leave you. Again, I am excited today, like I was when I first walked into Geno's, talking about it, knowing that you young people are loving it and intensely enthralled in your life by it, is is such a wonderful thing, that I think that the future of whacking is in your hands, but it's kind of like going back to the future. I know that it's necessary for the community to understand the past. And my message is that the past is still bigger than the community knows.
Thank you, thank you. Now that you're saying this, that is so important. And if you could also share the photos that you have so we can share it in the Whacking World page, that would be awesome. So we're looking forward for that. We want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Bill, for sharing all this very valuable and precious information. Thank you, everyone, for signing up, for being in this, to keep supporting. Let's keep supporting each other as a community.
Yes.
Like, you guys make possible to have the opportunity to hear more people like him, like Anna. If you keep supporting and spreading the word, we have the resources to make it happen. So please keep sharing, keep supporting everyone. Thank you so much. And I don't know if someone else want to add something extra just to say bye. You have a bunch of thank yous on the chat. If you can just take a look on it, Bill. And
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
yes.
Really, I'm moved, and it's funny too, because, I recently, I moved back home from Italy to take care of my mother. My mother used to actually drive me and my sister to Geno's. I mean, she knew that it's a good place, they're safe there, and she would drive us and let us off at Geno's doorstep. So, we're a big family.
Um,
Thank you, everyone. I
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much. See you guys for next class, which is gonna be with Archie. And I think that's it.
Give
Yep.
Archie my love.
Yes, we will. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a
Bye,
wonderful day.
bye,
See you.
everyone. Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a good day ahead.